We come into this world as these beautiful little perfect uncorrupted askers as children, right? We're wildly curious. First of all, we want to know everything. We want to know who, what, when, where, why, how. And we also aren't afraid to ask for more and pretty much ask for anything we want. And then depending on how we were parented, what happened in our school years, what happened in our job experience, you hear, quit asking so many questions. I'm tired of hearing from you, or do not ask unless you're called on, or your opinion's just not valued at your work, whatever it is. This beautiful natural ability starts to get crushed out of us. And suddenly we find ourselves standing there as full-grown adults, literally terrified to ask anyone anything, and sort of ashamed to not already have all the answers. And it's so sad to be in that state, because there's no way any of us are going to have all the answers in this lifetime. We need to ask to fulfill our destiny. We need to be able to ask ourselves, ask others, and ask God, and not be ashamed or afraid to take what we call that asking journey. This exists inside of all of us, usually at a subconscious level, until we address it, until we face it, until we read a book like Ask and realize, what are these roadblocks? Mark and I call them the 7 roadblocks to asking. And that first one is just what you said. It's unworthiness. It's that subtle childhood conditioning that often we don't even know is there, that just kind of is telling us at a very subtle subconscious level that we're not enough, we're not good enough, we're a little bit of ashamed, and it doesn't make any sense. It's not logical, because the subconscious mind, when we build these programs, they're based on all these emotional experiences, and they don't make sense. The subconscious mind doesn't filter out information, it just stores it. And so we all have this stuff stored inside of us that is causing us to hold back, to not ask, to not wonder, to not ponder, to not step up and ask for those things that we want, those things that we're curious about, even if it's something as simple as, when is my table going to be ready, right? But we all do that. We're afraid to ask for a better table or a better seat on the airplane. So we suffer, and there's no reason to suffer in this life. We all need to learn to ask and to get over these 7 roadblocks, and we can get into any one of them more deeply, Ed. But what Mark and I found is that each one of us carries at least one, if not more, of these roadblocks. And sometimes we're dealing with all of them all at once in our lives. We don't know what we don't know. And we tell the story in the book, Ed, about this lovely Filipino woman who came to work when our children were little. The kids are 16 months apart, and she'd make all these amazing dishes from her homeland. And one day she shows up and cuts this fruit on a plate, and she goes, "Here, try this." And I bit into this juicy orange fruit, and I go, "Melda, what is this? This is the most amazing fruit I've ever tasted." And she goes, "It's a mango." And I go, "Mango? How come I've never tasted a mango? That's bizarre. I've traveled all over Europe. How did I miss the mangoes?" But, I realized I'm a girl from Idaho, grew up with a lot of potatoes, but no mangoes. Right. And it made me start to think. I really pondered that, what else am I missing in my life besides the greatest fruit in the world, just because I don't even know it's available to me. I go, "Melda, where'd you get these? Did you import them from the Philippines?" She goes, "No, they're at the grocery store." And I thought, I'm walking by this every day. What else am I walking past? What person am I walking past? Not even notice, not even curious. Because I just don't know. I'm naive, right? I might be walking past the greatest advocate I've ever had, the best friend I might have, or some opportunity I'm not aware of because of that naivete. And I think we're all naive in some way. And that is one of our roadblocks to asking. We need to look around more. We need to rekindle that childlike curiosity and wonder about that person you're walking past, wonder about that company, that opportunity, that thing that you haven't even stopped to inquire about. That's part of the magic of life, where life starts to unfold for you. Stories are so relatable, and our brain thinks in patterns. So when we can share a story that's relatable, we learn so quickly. Human beings can learn so quickly from stories. So I took a lot of times we passed the writing back and forth, and I started writing this, and honestly, it was like it had a life of its own, and I just took off. I had so much joy writing this. I feel like I was downloading it. The whole story, all the characters came. And I've been fortunate enough in my life to have these amazing dreams that have guided me, very spiritual dreams. So I kind of modified my own dreams a little bit, and Michaela has these dreams, right? But completely different story, of course. But just to let the listeners know, Michaela starts off, she's lost everything in her life. Basically, she's lost her mother, her father, her home's been taken away by the bill collector. She's sleeping in a grove of trees. And her job every day as an indentured servant at a stone quarry is to lift heavy rocks from one place to another. And I think that's how a lot of people feel in this life right now, is that their entire life is just feels like moving heavy rocks from one place to another, and they've lost hope. And that's where Michaela was. So this story is really every woman and every man's story. But Michaela, falls into an exhausted sleep, and the being comes to her and he takes her on this journey. And I'm not going to tell everything, but the gist of it is he shows her some really beautiful things, and he admonishes her to asking and never stop asking. And that's the key. Yes. And so when she wakes up, she knows already something has shifted, because that's what happens to each of us when we have those moments, those spiritual little epiphanies. We can shift everything in a moment, absolutely everything, just with a little awareness. And so that's what happens. So she starts little by little, Michaela's life starts shifting. She starts paying attention to the words, the dreams. And by the end of Michaela's story, she is a completely different person than she was when she started. And that is what can happen to every single person listening. We all have that in us. We all have the essence of God inside of us. We all have every possibility and potential inside of us. And so that story flowed up out of me from somewhere to really remind people, I think, of what is inside of each one of them and each one of you who's listening, and to really start to ask the questions that will reveal your next step to you.